Home run number 14 for Shohei Ohtani, an ERA of 2.10, and fans in Kevin Durant and JJ Watt. Is this actually a baseball player that we're talking about here on Baseball Tonight Extra? I'm Jeff Passan, joined in the lower left-hand corner by Alden Gonzalez, upper left-hand corner by Kiley McDaniel, and Pablo S. Torre making a comeback to the baseball scene. How many years after you last wrote a baseball story? My goodness, it's lovely to see.
I feel like I am currently, like me and Kiley, like we're clients of the law firm that you and Alden are running right now. You guys are wearing suits. I feel like I'm in court right now.
All right, you know what? If that's the case, then I'm going to put you on the spot right here and ask you a very pointed question, because your perspective has been noted as being an outsider here. Kiley is a scout by trade. Alden is a baseball writer. You are a talking head. So I would like you to talk about why people outside of baseball do not know or appreciate what Shohei Ohtani is doing right now.
So as a gas bag who once had lunch with Jeff Passan at spring training like 15 years ago, I have many opinions about this subject. That is not an exaggeration. That is a real thing that we did. So I see this as an outsider. I see this also as an Asian American, and I am furious that people don't give the proper credit to somebody who is doing twice as much work as everyone else in the group. Like, that to me just resonates. Shohei Ohtani should be celebrated for the proper amount of work he is doing. I think people aren't talking about this simply because the Angels are the Angels. Like, if he was a New York Yankee, we would be building statues of him. But because he is playing for the Angels, who as a group, again, cannot make any sense, cannot do anything good, despite all of the work he's putting in, I think that's where my frustration lies.
Alden, I just want you to pick that up because you're in Los Angeles. You have covered the Angels for a long time. You can speak to the organizational ineptitude there. And Kiley, after that, I'm curious what you're seeing from Shohei Ohtani.
So it's hard for me to have that perspective because maybe I'm just too close to it. I feel like I talk about Shohei Ohtani all the time. I feel like he's everything that I ever talk about, including with Pablo earlier.
Yes, thank you, by the way. That was a great episode we did ESPN Daily. I am plugging a podcast that is not this within 4 minutes. Yes.
I appreciate that always, Pablo. And I think Pablo hit on some things that are very real here. One of them is the obvious, which is that he plays for an Angels team that, by the way, even though Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout were playing at an MVP level, they had the second worst run differential going into yesterday. That's how bad they are outside of those guys. And it really is a crime that that's the case. But I think there's also something to the point that I think we struggle, even as people who observe the game very closely, to really, truly wrap our heads around what this guy is doing. There is no precedent for this outside of Babe Ruth, and that was done 100 years ago when the game was completely different. I don't think we fully realize, even as we celebrate this guy as much as we do, how difficult it is to have an OPS over 900, to have an ERA of 2.10, to be striking out that many dudes and hitting that many home runs. We just don't. I think we struggle as a population to even contextualize something like this. I think that's part of the problem here. He's too good.
Can I actually jump in for a second here and ask Kiley a question, Jeff, on this program? Because I have a hot take that
my role. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I have a hot take, Jeff Passan. I have a hot take.
I literally invite you in, and you just come in like Passan.
Jeff, you've been canceled. Let it go. Mine.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I've been replaced. I'm gonna
cancel culture has come for Jeff Passan. Finally, we've all been waiting for it. But Kiley, I have a question because my hot take is this, right? There is no way that anybody else in baseball is more valuable than Shohei Ohtani. Is there any way we can get around that argument? Because AL MVP is one thing, but I just mean in terms of value as a baseball player in 100 years. Is there possibly an argument over the last 100 years that anybody is actually more valuable than this guy doing all of this stuff?
Yeah, the current version of him right now, there's stuff above and beyond even WAR can tell you, because you could use him in relief, you could use him playing defense in the field, you could DH him, you could start him. You can't properly capture his value just in WAR. You're also saving a roster spot, which is a little less valuable now than it was when it was 25-man rosters. but he's doing things that you can't quantify, and he's already near the top in WAR anyway. And I think part of the reason there's not quite as much hype is because if he came over and in the first week in the big leagues that he was here, while everybody was like, can you believe there's a guy from Japan that goes both ways and is really good, and then he did it, I think people would be going nuts. But because it was like kind of quiet, like off and on for a couple years, Pujols fell off, and now Trout's hurt. They haven't been good in a while. The Dodgers are much more sort of famous nationally than the Angels are. I think it falls off a little bit. But if you were to make like MLB's wet dream of who they want to market, it would be like international star, leads the league in homers, hits them as hard as anyone else, hits them in like crazy locations like Ichiro or Vlad Jr. would do, or Vlad Sr. actually also. Like throws 100, is a starter, could be winning awards, is in a big market. Like, how is this not working? I don't understand how it's not working yet.
It makes great faces that Alden uses in memes to troll me.
Yes.
Okay. Alden, you covered the NFL. Pablo, you talk all the time about the NFL. I was talking with Pat McAfee earlier today and trying to compare this for a football audience. And this is what I came up with. Shohei Ohtani is like if you took Justin Herbert and he was TJ Watt on the other side of the ball, or if you took TJ Watt and he could play quarterback like Justin Herbert. Here was my rationale there. A good starting pitcher is the closest thing you're going to find to a quarterback in Major League Baseball, a guy who single-handedly can take over a game. And Ohtani at 26 years old is finally starting to show the potential that we've long known has been in him. His performance has been great, but there's even higher ceiling. That's the Herbert thing. Offensively, I don't look at a power hitter or a guy who's great power, like a middle linebacker, somebody who's running things. I look at it more like an impact type end who does big things at specific times in the game and has an ability to impact it at any given moment. And the fact that, if Ohtani walked more, if he hit for a higher average, maybe that would be different. But it's just that it is literally like the home run potential that is equivalent to me to a sack. And this guy is both of those things. It is an obscene player that we're talking about here.
So I actually want to make this case now that I've been bolstered by people who actually know about baseball in a rigorous way. Shohei Ohtani is the best player we've seen in 100 years. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Two reasons. One, because he's been doing it for a month and a half, and best does not mean a small sample of doing something great. But beyond that, because he has not been the best hitter or the best pitcher. He's been extremely good at both of those things.
But has anyone else done both of those? Kiley, tell me why the fact that he can do both of those things. Why is it why can't I? Again, this is Asian parent thing, but why can't I go to Barry Bonds and be like, Barry Bonds, you think you're really good at baseball, huh? Can you strike out 10 people in 9 innings, in 7 innings? Can you do that? Because Shohei Ohtani can.
And I would say, to build on what Jeff said, if you try to say most valuable or best, it comes down to WAR and longevity. And obviously he doesn't have that. He hasn't proven it long enough yet. But if you say the best collection of skills, that's when you go back to the Babe Ruth thing. It's all right, he's got almost Bo Jackson level tools as a position player. And then he's also got almost Jacob deGrom level tools as a pitcher. And we're now seeing it. We just haven't seen it long enough for it to be Hall of Fame MVP, Cy Young stuff. But with StatCast and our own eyeballs, we can see that if he never got hurt and played for the rest of time, that's what it would be.
And if I could jump in here, this is why I'm so fascinated by the aspect of this in terms of precedent setting. And we talked about this on your podcast, Pablo. Shohei Ohtani is an amazing athlete, and there isn't much there aren't many people you can compare him to, but I don't know that he is a complete outlier. And what I mean by that is Shohei Ohtani exists right now because he is allowed to exist, because he came out of high school and because they let him pitch, they let him hit. And I think about when I see him doing the things he's doing, I think about somebody like a Zach Greinke. I think about somebody like a Josh Hamilton, who obviously when they began playing in the major leagues were not going to be able to do that. But if they came up through a minor league system and they were encouraged to do this two-way thing, and I think Kiley could speak to this very well, I wonder if what Shohei is doing right now, I don't know that we're going to see maybe anybody be able to do it at this type of level for a prolonged period of time. But maybe if he succeeds at this, we're going to see more teams maybe attempt to groom this Shohei Ohtani, or at the very least, You draft a really talented kid out of high school who's a really good pitcher and a really good shortstop. Maybe he doesn't have to pick one or the other because they're seeing what Shohei's doing right now.
Yeah, it's not a coincidence that there's been more of these guys in the past. Not because, like Alden's saying, not because they didn't exist. It's because people are letting them do both. We saw Brendan McKay went in the top 5 out of Louisville a couple years ago. And I was with the Braves that year. We thought he was better as a hitter. And I talked to the Rays who drafted him. They said, we thought he was better as a hitter. And then 1 year later, they're like, it turns out he was better as a pitcher. So he's going to be basically like a pinch hitter pitcher. And then there's been multiple other guys. So like Jake Cronenworth has been doing both and now looks to be much better as a hitter, but can do both. There's some guys in the low minors that have been drafted the top couple rounds, gotten high bonuses. This year, especially, I was actually talking to my editor about this as one of like the storylines of the draft. There's 3 guys in the top 50 picks this year that are top 2-round players as both hitters and pitchers. And one that I think may interest Pablo is named Bubba Chandler from Athens, Georgia.
I'm
in on any Bubba.
Here we go. Hold on. We got wispy mustache, mullet, committed to Clemson as a quarterback. He's committed to Clemson as a shortstop. Some scouts have compared him to Chipper Jones at the plate, and he's up to 97. Most teams prefer him as a pitcher. He's probably going to go in the first round. He's probably going to play baseball. But I was like, that set of skills is super compelling. And I was at a game for Kid Carson Williams in San Diego area, very similar sort of talent. And the 2 teams that had high-ranking scouts there were Tampa Bay and LA, the Angels. It's like the 2 teams that are open to doing this sorts of things are the guys are drafting and scouting these sorts of players because they're open to doing it. There's more value to them than other teams.
Listen, I'm just excited to see Pablo Torre go right to Google after this is over and look up Bubba Chandler's wispy mustache. And
I'm doing it right now.
Doing it right now. There is no waiting. Better bow to wrap this episode of Baseball Tonight Extra with than that. So for Alden Gonzalez, Kiley McDaniel, and special guest Pablo Torre, I'm Jeff Passan. Keep checking us out here on YouTube, on ESPN's channel. And let's do the Bubba Chandler.
I just found that photo. It's like looking in a mirror, man. I am all in on this shit.